This is all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related to Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation, all Bitcoin, all the time. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Let's take a look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index is falling over 4% over the past 24 hours, now trading at $57,823. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. So let's take a look at some of our top stories. Well, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi saying democratic countries should work together to ensure crypto doesn't end up in the wrong hands and, quote, spoil our use, in a speech before the annual Summit on Emerging Technology Sydney Dialogue. India's government is filing a highly anticipated bill that would likely ban the use of crypto transactions but allow investing in crypto assets. Some mining news. Bitmining saying fourth quarter revenue will fall 10 to 20% as its mining pool business, BTC.com, completely exits the Chinese market. The Hong Kong-based crypto miner is working on solutions such as migrating mining machines to overseas markets. In the United States, Bitcoin miner BitDeer is going public with a SPAC merger that values the company at around $4 billion. The combined company will be renamed to BitDeer Technologies Group and remain listed on the NASDAQ. Finally, Bitcoin miner PrimeBlock is planning to go public by merging with 10x Capital, which would value the combined entity at about $1.5 billion, according to Bloomberg. Quick update on the Kleiman versus Craig Wright case. The trial is transitioning from the plaintiffs to the defense. The federal civil trial over the potential ownership of over 1 million BTC, worth about $66 billion today, has become tense, with defendant Craig Wright accused of witness intimidation. And finally, the Latin America Bitcoin and Blockchain Conference is underway in El Salvador. CoinDesk audience editor Elaine Ramirez is on the ground, where earlier she had the opportunity to talk to Ray Youssef, CEO of Paxful, a peer-to-peer crypto marketplace that has made strides onboarding crypto adopters in emerging markets. He discusses the state of Bitcoin in El Salvador. Have a listen.
Well, the El Salvadorian people are ready for change. The merchants on the ground are ready to adopt Bitcoin. They have been adopting Bitcoin in significant numbers. We have a team on the ground here, and it's beautiful to see what's happening. What has to happen faster, though, is education. There's a lot of simple things that people have to understand. Number one, the Chivo wallet, which is the government wallet, sometimes the people call it the Gestapo wallet. People have to understand that Chivo wallet is not Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is not the Chivo wallet. There are two independent entities. You can use the Bitcoin network with any wallet you so choose. That's an important distinction. We're setting up an educational center here. Bitcoin training center is what we call it. We're opening up tonight. You're invited. Everyone is. And, this is important because there's a lot of simple lessons that people need to understand. One is Bitcoin is a distinct entity from any wallet. And two is, simple things like you can buy any fraction of a Bitcoin. And the big one is the narrative, right? People have to understand that Bitcoin is not just an investment or a tool of speculation. It's a means of exchange. And it is the hope to get the emerging world, what I like to call the global south, out of financial apartheid, which is the instrument of control that has kept parts of the world poor. Poverty is an artificial construct. The default state of humanity is wealth and abundance, and that happens when you have free trade. And Bitcoin, the best thing about Bitcoin is it allows people to transact freely, instantly, in real time. When you talk to normal people on the ground and they ask you why Bitcoin? Simple analogies like, would anyone use WhatsApp if they could all use it 9 to 5, Mondays through Fridays? You wouldn't. So why should we settle for the same situation with our financial system? We human beings, the power of humanity truly emerges when we can cooperate, when we can share our resources, especially across time and space. The value of our work containerized through time and space is the greatest creative expression of humanity, and Bitcoin allows that to truly blossom in a borderless, permissionless way. What could be more beautiful?
Indeed. So you brought up a big thing here that education is a really important component here. Another thing that's really different about El Salvador is that this is a top-down mandate, which is a very rare occasion. How do you evaluate the infrastructure for Bitcoin adoption here? Obviously, there are a lot of components that we need: public sector, private sector, education. Do you think we have all of the components here for balanced growth and adoption?
No, we don't. Absolutely not. But guess what? You don't need all that fancy stuff. Because when you have a community of people that are true believers, that are making a concentrated effort to come here and educate the people, that are putting their money where their mouth is, that are coming here with their Bitcoin, amazing things can happen very quickly, especially when the government is supporting Bitcoin, especially when there's a mandate. Now, about this mandate, it's Bitcoin. If you don't use Bitcoin, you're not going to go to jail. You're not going to get a fine, right? So it's a strong suggestion. And that's what I like to reiterate to the people of El Salvador and everyone watching this experiment. And everyone is watching this experiment. We're talking with the heads of state all over the world, and all of them are looking at El Salvador. And that's why we're here, to make sure this is a resounding success. And it absolutely can be, and it can happen very quickly. In less than 3 years, you can see a situation where El Salvador, the savior, is the Switzerland or the Dubai of Latin America. And when that happens, the whole world will come following. And that's why we're here. Anyone that's coming to El Salvador, if you're coming here for profit, I suggest you look elsewhere. But if you're coming here to have impact, true global impact, you absolutely are in the right place. Because this is where we'll terraform the financial landscape of humanity, right here.
All right. So obviously we're very early stages, 2 months in really for legal implementation. Tell me what you see today versus what you think is the dream scenario for Bitcoin in El Salvador and what that looks like.
Well, the dream scenario to me is not being able to buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin, and that is nice and that will come. But the dream scenario is when people understand that the world that they're in right now is not the world that they have to be in 3 years from now. It's not the world that their children have to grow up in. If you look at Latin America and the world, most of the world is very patriarchal. It's a system where the men go to work and labor and the women stay home. And after the men come home, they go to the bar, or you can either go home or go to the bar. Most go to the bar. Whatever's left after that, they bring to their families. This is a painful situation. It's really a disgraceful situation for humanity. Is there a better way? And you see here the government promoting women getting into Bitcoin. That money that's going to Bitcoin should go to the family, to the house, meaning the ladies will be able to spend it. And that's a beautiful initiative, because the truth is, most financial revolutions, in fact, all financial revolutions are started by women. They're the ones that are spending the money on the household. It's not men spending the money in the bars, or at least it shouldn't be. So I think we're seeing a real terraform of culture that's starting here, and we're just in the genesis of it. I just came back from a talk with the CEO of one of the biggest banks here in El Salvador, and it was a lady. And we just came back from the Chamber of Commerce a few days ago. 90% of the people they employ are women. These are great signs. El Salvador is progressive in many ways, not just financially. So, it's everything that we're doing here is really about unity, and it's really about bringing humanity together. If you think about the divisions that are created in humanity, it started with divisions between man and woman, destroy the family unit. Now we've got vaccinated versus unvaccinated. The beautiful thing about what we're building here is that it brings everyone together. There are no divisions. There is unity. When we have unity and the ability to transact freely and grow our businesses, that's when real beautiful things happen. That's when wealth happens.
Tell me about what you see as Paxful's involvement in El Salvador and building this movement.
So it's just one word, and again, I'll repeat it. It's about education. We're opening a Bitcoin training center here where everyone can be trained in Bitcoin. And not just putting your money in Bitcoin and hoping that it grows. That will happen, but that's not the main course. The main course here is Bitcoin as a means of exchange to allow people to transact freely. If you're getting money sent home from abroad over here, it's nice to be able to save 20%. It's nice to be able to have those things happening instantly. What's even nicer is people being able to access liquidity outside of the country, having all the entrepreneurs here being able to access business cross-borderly with Guatemala, with Honduras, the neighboring countries, San Miguel with La Paz, and all the trade that can happen there can now happen instantly. All that overhead is cut out of the picture, and we see a truly united, borderless world. And it can happen very quickly here in El Salvador, because you look at Africa. 6 years ago, we were in Africa, and no one believed that Africa would be embracing Bitcoin at all. 6 years later, Africa's leading Bitcoin adoption globally. With the governments, like notably the governments of Nigeria, cracking down on Bitcoin uses, they still couldn't stop it. So if you look at El Salvador, a smaller population, a government that is in support of the situation, things can happen much faster, and that makes us feel very hopeful. Bitcoin is hope.
So what I've so far been able to observe here in El Salvador, and maybe you've seen something like it, is that the businesses that are accepting Bitcoin readily happen to be big businesses, and there's still like quite a layer to penetrate in order to get the mom and pop restaurants on board. Obviously, there's some of it is happening, especially in El Zonte. It's very, very penetrated there. But how do you think we can actually help to transform the psychology that helps these mom and pop places to get over that fear and to really understand the value of accepting Bitcoin?
Well, it's going to sound kind of corny, but don't try too hard. We came upon a merchant here, a convenience store on the way from El Zonte to San Salvador. We stopped in. The owner's name was Miguel, and we were buying stuff from him, and we love Bitcoin, so we just started talking about it freely, and he started asking questions. Now if you go to his shop, you'll see a huge sign, accepting Bitcoin here. Paxful is right there. And I met him, and it was beautiful to see what he'd done. He is now 3x in profit with the Bitcoin he decided to save. And that's how it starts. That's how it started in El Zonte. People weren't trying to proselytize or convert people or change their mind. They were living with them. They were their neighbors. They were among the community. And they were just sharing the things they loved with each other. And that's how things happen. And the more good seeds we plant with warm feelings, the more we lead with empathy, the faster things will happen. And I think it will shock us.
All right, that was CoinDesk audience editor Elaine Ramirez speaking to Paxful CEO Ray Youssef in El Salvador. Coming up, Bitcoin price analysis with Upgrade.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
LMAX Digital saying Bitcoin has been looking tired in recent sessions after failing to extend the record run. There is now a risk for a double top on the daily chart, which, if triggered, could expose the possibility for a more profound drop towards a measured move downside extension target in the $48,000 range. Bitcoin looking choppy amid sour forecasts made by an Australian central bank official as well. The Reserve Bank of Australia's head of payments policy, Tony Richards, warning the Sydney Morning Herald that the faddish interest in cryptocurrencies could quickly end. Richards saying, quote, "There are plausible scenarios where a range of factors could come together to significantly challenge the current fervor for cryptocurrencies so that the current speculative demand could begin to reverse and much of the price increases of recent years could be unwound. Households might be less influenced by fads and the fear of missing out, or FOMO, and might start to pay more attention to the warnings of securities regulators and consumer protection agencies in many countries about the risks of investing in something with no issuer, no backing, and highly uncertain value." End quote. Joining us now to discuss is Renaud Laplanche, CEO of neobank Upgrade. Hello there, Renaud. So taking a look at Bitcoin's retreat, what do you make of the price trajectory?
Well, I think there's continued volatility in the price of Bitcoin, of course. What I'm more worried about, back to your previous segment about what's happening in El Salvador and in many countries in Africa, if we really want Bitcoin to be used as a currency, I think the volatility is going to continue to be an obstacle there. I think that probably sort of puts more better argument towards some of the stable coins there rather than Bitcoin as a currency, because that volatility is likely to continue as most investors, most traders think of Bitcoin more as a sort of short-term investment, short-term trading opportunity, and less as a sort of long-term stable currency.
Right. You describe your bank as a neobank, and so does it integrate or incorporate cryptocurrencies? Does it, or plan to at least? And if so, is that limited to something like stable coins, or will you allow Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, so we pioneered just a few months ago a new type of credit card, which is a sort of US dollar credit card that you can use at any sort of millions of merchants around the country, anywhere Visa is accepted. But then the rewards program is in Bitcoin. So it's a great opportunity to actually get Bitcoin for free without putting money at risk initially, just getting it as a rewards program. So each time you spend with the card, and as you pay back your balance, you earn 1.5% of your spend in Bitcoin.
Well, an interesting product. It is, though, as you mentioned concern over the volatility of the price of Bitcoin, especially in emerging markets where, losing however much percent of whatever dollars you had in, it could make a difference between putting food on the table or not. So I suppose, what are your thoughts on cryptocurrencies and how they should be used? Are they investment vehicles, or something to be used in a speculative sort of sense?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely room for both, right? I think we got to call them all cryptocurrencies, but they're actually sort of crypto investments and cryptocurrencies. And I think the difference between the two is just like how much volatility you have in each of them.
So with that being said, what's your end of year outlook on Bitcoin for the year?
Well, I'm actually more on the bullish side of things. I think so there are continued concerns about inflation, and we realize that inflation might not be as transitory as it's been thought for some time, and there continues to be sort of mismatch between supply and demand, particularly as sort of holiday shopping continues to sort of grow demand from consumers. There's going to be continued sort of price pressure, continued inflation concerns, and these are sort of all factors pointing towards appreciation in Bitcoin.
All right, Renaud, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your insights. That was Upgrade CEO Renaud Laplanche. That's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christy Lee, and we'll do it all over again tomorrow at 3 p.m. in New York. You're watching CoinDesk TV.